In focus, there are now multiple reports that Iran is erecting a permanent military base in Syria, not far from the border with Israel. The Iranian regime is reportedly building a base about 31 miles from Israel's Golan Heights. Iran is already supporting Hezbollah, a terror group in Syria and Lebanon that has vowed to destroy Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says there is no place for Iran in Syria. But this week, Russia, an ally of Iran, said that despite Israeli concerns, Iran's presence in Syria is legitimate and appropriate.
We've just stated the fact that there is Russian and Iranian legitimate presence on the invitation of the legitimate government. And we've also stated the fact of the illegitimate presence of the coalition created by the United States, which is carrying out military actions.
Israeli officials are reportedly troubled by Russia's support of Iran in Syria, especially given the multiple discussions on this very issue this year between Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and Russian President Vladimir Putin. We'd like to welcome Ryan Mauro, a national security analyst with the Clarion Project. And Ryan, how dangerous, how threatening is it for Israel to have Iran just 30 miles north of the border along the Golan Heights?
It's incredibly dangerous, and that danger is magnified for reasons that I think a lot of people are missing. This isn't normal competition between hostile powers. This isn't even the normal Iranian sponsorship of terrorism and attempts to expand their military presence. To the Iranian regime, this is the fulfillment of prophecy. If you look at the forces that Iran is assembling in Iraq, as well as in this specific area of Syria near Israel, they are being given prophetic names. So this new base, this new force, is specifically being called the supporters of the Mahdi. And the Mahdi is this messianic figure in their Apocalyptic End Times prophecy that is supposed to help them destroy Israel and the perceived enemies of Islam. And so you are not dealing with fully rational actors. You can be irrational and strategic and pragmatic all at the same time, and that's what the Iranian regime is doing.
Is it possible for Israel to act perhaps preemptively without drawing Russia in, given that Russia has already said that they support Iran doing this?
Sure. I think Israel has done enough military actions against Hezbollah, Iran, and other adversaries that are backed by the Russians that the worry isn't that Russia is going to attack Israel, but the concern is that there'll be an escalation without there being real benefit from it. So if Israel destroys the military base and this presence that is being built up, well, the Iranians will swap out the remains of that with a new force. And so what did you really get from that? You have to have a strategic doctrine, an ideological doctrine, basically to destroy the Iranian Islamic Revolution that the Russians, with their Cold War mindset, have decided to back. But if you understand these prophecies that Iran believes that they are fulfilling, that's how you can predict their next moves and understand what they're doing. According to the prophecies that this movement is related to, Iran believes that they are supposed to come in and through Iraq into Syria, destroy Sunni adversaries, and then continue on to destroy Israel. And after they capture Jerusalem, that's when the Mahdi, this figure, appears. And this is stuff that the Iranian regime has said in their own publications.
And how aware is the Trump administration to all of this?
I don't believe that they are on that level. The Trump administration has actually not endorsed the objective of regime change in Iran. I know regime change is a dirty word, but you can come up with another phrase for it. But if you do not understand that the Iranian Islamic Revolution and the regime that sustains it needs to be overthrown for there to be serious progress in the region, then you're off the ball. You're not going to have a really workable strategy. And according to these prophecies, by the way, what you should be looking for right now are increased destabilization operations in Bahrain, which we are seeing, and efforts to destabilize Saudi Arabia internally.
Ryan Mauro, national security analyst with the Clarion Project. Ryan, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And now a look beyond stateside in our global roundup. Italy is sending humanitarian aid to the Iraq-Iran border to help victims of Sunday's massive earthquake. The 7.3 magnitude quake killed more than 530 people and injured thousands more. In the Iranian province of Kermanshah, the region that was hardest hit, local residents are now living in tents. Officials say at least 30,000 homes were destroyed. In Greece, officials say flash floods have killed at least 14 people. Heavy rains prompted raging torrents that swept through towns west of Athens. A state of emergency is in effect in several areas where roads turned into fast-flowing rivers of mud and cars were tossed around dangerously or swept into the sea altogether. Forecasters say the rain will continue for several days. In China, an expressway pileup killed at least 18 people. Police say the crash involved more than 30 cars and trucks. The wreck happened on a foggy stretch of highway in Anhui province. Several people were killed not by the impact of the wreck, but by the fire that erupted after a bus slammed into an oil tanker. In Amsterdam, look away if you are afraid of flying or don't like mid-air anomalies. That airplane was struck by lightning soon after takeoff. The incident happened a few minutes after the KLM aircraft flew away from Schiphol Airport. As scary as it looks, the plane successfully and safely continued on its journey to Peru. And celebrations have erupted in Australia in the wake of a public referendum that found a majority of voters support legalizing same-sex marriage. The vote paves the way for Parliament to legally recognize the unions of gay and lesbian couples. Of the over 12 million people who voted, more than 61% voted yes. Still to come, in the Trump effect, 5 articles of impeachment have been introduced against President Trump. A group of Democratic House lawmakers accused Mr. Trump of obstruction of justice and other high crimes and misdemeanors. And there are new details in this week's Northern California shooting spree. Officials say the gunman killed his wife and hid her body under the floors of his house before opening fire at several locations, including an elementary school. And in Spotlight, a new study shows that a rise in teenage suicide is connected to the messages teenagers are scrolling through on their digital devices and on social media.